You're listening to KTST FM, Orange County. Now broadcasting from coast to coast and around the world at KTSTFM.com. Stay tuned for more.
Welcome to episode 5 of Secret City Geek Lab, your resource in the week in geek news and features. We'll talk movies, TV, comic books, video games, and anything geek. I'm your host, Alan Ng, and you'll hear from me and members of the improv comedy group Secret City Comic Society. Today's show is brought to you by Secret City Comic Society, the best in all ages improv comedy in downtown Fullerton. Visit Secret City Comic Society and the Geek Lab at secretcitycomedy.com. Right now you're listening to a suite from the video game World of Warcraft. Coming up on this week's show, a movie review of the movie Olympus Has Fallen, a comic book roundtable featuring Thor, Walking Dead, and Batman, and straight from WonderCon, DC writer Scott Snyder talks about the upcoming Superman Unchained comic book series. First up, a movie review of Olympus Has Fallen. Disgraced former presidential guard Mike Banning finds himself trapped inside the White House in the wake of a terrorist attack. Using his inside knowledge, Banning works with national security to rescue the president from his kidnappers. With this review, we bring you Secret City Comic Society cast member Davey Linam. All right, Davey Linam is here to talk about Olympus Has Fallen. Now, you saw that over the weekend?
I did.
All right, so generally, what did you think of the movie?
I liked it. It was really good. It had me drawn in the whole time.
Yeah, what were things that you liked about it?
You know, I liked how the logic was very sound in the movie.
In what way?
It felt like this all was possible. I mean, if you took a step back and you thought about it, obviously, you know, things like this wouldn't happen. But while you were in the theater, while you were engaged in the movie, because it definitely drew you in, it did seem like this could happen, you know? This all seemed real.
Okay. So I haven't seen the movie, but essentially it's the North Koreans coming in and blowing up the White House, or is it bigger than that?
No, it's much bigger than that. I don't know whether this is a spoiler or not, but it's more of a paramilitary group away from the North Korean government that wants to start a war between South Korea and North Korea for their own personal interest.
Okay, so someone's setting up a future war, or a potential war.
Yeah.
A nuclear war, basically, between the United States and North Korea.
No, it's
or
more.
something.
They want the Korea to be one country again. So they want North Korea to come and invade South Korea.
Okay, and the story focuses on the Gerard Butler character and the president? Or?
Yes. They definitely go back between the Spec Ops agent, bodyguard, Secret Service guy, and the president in the bunker. And then they go back a couple times to the Speaker of the House, played by Morgan Freeman.
Okay. And then was it action? Was it political thriller? Was it both? Like you mentioned Morgan Freeman as Speaker of the House. Was there an element of political thriller?
Yeah, there definitely was. They mention how the characters feel about Morgan Freeman as the Speaker of the House. He becomes acting president because, the president and vice president is taken. So they definitely kept, politics. They didn't, lean towards the side, but they definitely kept it, close to the Constitution and how things were written out.
Okay. What did you think of Gerard Butler? I guess he's the main star of the movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. It was very good. He really played the character well. It felt, I don't know, you could really feel how am I putting this? You could tell how the character was feeling about every event and how these events while he's going through the White House are really taking a toll on him emotionally and physically. In
terms of following the action, everything, were there moments in the movie where it just took you out of the movie going, oh, this couldn't happen, or this is over the top?
No, I don't really think so. I mean, one scene in particular was the kind of at the beginning when they're taking over the White House. It didn't seem realistic that all the Secret Service and Army and military people were kind of standing on the lawn being fired at. That it seemed so unrealistic to me personally because I felt like, that's not what they're trained for. But other than that, the logic just seemed, all the action was, pretty realistic and very inviting for the audience to just immerse themselves.
Okay. Do you recommend seeing this movie at the movie theater or at home or?
Yes, I recommend seeing it at theater. It's definitely a great experience.
Okay, so definitely a full price experience.
Yes.
All right. From a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being best, what do you rate this movie?
8.
8. Very good. This is Davey Linam. I'm Alan Ing for Secret City Geek Lab. You're listening to Secret City Geek Lab on KTST-FM. I'm Alan Ing. Up next is this week's Comic Book Roundtable, and we are bringing back our comic book expert, Dimithri Perera, and our comic book newbie, Krista Messer. We discuss Thor number 6, Walking Dead number 108, and Batman number 18. First up, Thor number 6, written by Jason Aaron and artist Esau Grabik. The God Bomb, Part 1. Somewhere at the end of time, all the gods of the universe are enslaved, working to build a machine that will forever change the face of creation. What is the God Bomb, and what can Thor and the last free god in all the cosmos do to stop it? All right now we're talking Thor, God of Thunder, number 6. This is the beginning of the next story arc of Gorr, the God Killer. It looks like I'm the only one who read Thor 1 through 5. And it's basically the story of this God Killer who's going around killing gods. And he's basically not only just killing them, but he's torturing them. We get to issue 6, and we're looking at Gorr's backstory, why he has come to where he's at. Dimithri, you want to talk a little bit of the story?
The beginning of the issue had Gorr's backstory. He was a believer in the gods. His family dies. He now becomes an atheist. Then the gods come and he kills them. And so, I don't know, it's interesting to see his rise into godhood by not believing in gods. Also, something interesting was that black rock that he was holding, very reminiscent of the Venom symbiote. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're related somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I found this issue to be very interesting because, in issues 1 through 5, Jason Aaron basically sets up what gods are in the Marvel Universe. It's these immortals that protect planets. And Gorr is going around killing all of them. And in this backstory, we're seeing how Gorr grew up on this planet where the gods just never were there. The planet's dying, he's dying, they're eating basically each other and various things. And then finally the gods do show up. And it's weird being an atheist when your god actually does show up. And he's so angry he decides to go out and kill every single god there is in the universe. So what do we think of the story? Krista, you read this. This is your first exposure to Thor. What did you think of the story?
I really enjoyed it. It was really emotional, which was great.
In what way?
In what way? I don't know. Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the art itself brought out the emotion in the story because I thought all the facial expressions were great. And, your family's dying and, the one thing that's supposed to protect you and help you isn't there. I mean, I can really understand where he's coming from. Right.
So when he becomes a very angry, vengeful person at the end, you felt the story really led up to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I did. Right.
Dimithri?
I think it's interesting when you see his two different sons, one in the beginning who's emaciated when he does believe in the gods, and now not believing in the gods, he has one that seems to be healthy. I just think it's an interesting religious allegory for believing versus non-believing. We'll see where it goes.
This is Secret City Geek Lab, and up next we're going to talk Walking Dead number 108. It's entitled Ezekiel Has a Tiger, and it's written by Robert Kirkman and Charles Aldred. Walking Dead 108, the title is Ezekiel Has a Tiger. All right, I think we first want to talk about zombies overall. Krista, we talked a little bit, but what's your feeling about zombies?
I don't like them. They really, really creep me out. The way they look and the way they move, and I just feel like what's dead should stay dead. Like, I don't like when dead things move.
I think that's the whole point to zombies, Krista.
Yeah, that's why I don't like them.
I don't think anybody likes zombies as much as they like to hate zombies. I can't do horror. Horror scares me, but zombies are another thing. I like to hate zombies, and
what is it about zombies versus horror that
zombies are almost cartoonish, I think. And so it's like cartoonish violence versus like if I watch a horror movie that has a killer, but the killer's in your house. Yeah. That makes it seem like, that could really happen. Yeah. Like the killer, there could be a killer in my house right now and I wouldn't know. Mm-hmm. But I know most likely there's not a zombie in my house.
Like you don't like the psychological type horror, but like just the gory,
unrealistic
zombies, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, like, if you're watching Walking Dead, especially the first seasons and the early issues of Walking Dead, when these were loved ones who were coming after you, who were zombies, and the choice of, well, do I kill someone I know who's clearly dead? Now that we've gotten further into not only the television season, but, we're on Walking Dead 108, we're dealing now with just killing these things for the sake of killing them and protecting ourselves.
Well, I mean, it's gotten past the whole survival. It's more like a reconstruction type thing.
Yeah, and
they're trying to reconstruct society.
Right, and that leads us into this issue. Ezekiel has a tiger. I stopped reading. Chris has not been reading Walking Dead. I stopped reading Walking Dead at 40 when they're in the town and they're all living nice. And so I kind of stopped there. But now it does appear that there are two villages at this point, or two cities.
Well, now they're rediscovering the fact that there are other towns, other villages other than their own, and they're all part of a network. Problem is, with every good guy, there's a bad guy. And there's Negan, who is essentially charging protection money. And so human nature, it's funny, human nature doesn't die. And the zombies die and they're reborn. I guess these horrible aspects of human nature die and are also reborn, just in a different setting. And so, yeah, I mean, evil works that way, I guess.
Right. And so Walking Dead 108 is basically, it looks like the prelude to a war between Negan and Ezekiel's camp. Dimitri, why don't you talk about, what did you think of that issue? What did you think where it's going?
I'm really liking it. I think it's interesting, Jesus and Ezekiel and all these biblical themes. At first it was like, oh, is it a little heavy-handed? But it makes sense that they kind of rediscover religion, at least this one town, this one village, this one community. And even their guards are like knights. They look like crusaders. I think part of their keeping their humanity is keeping their culture and I don't know, maybe looking towards God. Ezekiel looks badass. In our world, he would just be an old black man with a cane, but in this world,
he's an old black man with a tiger.
With a cane. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if I was stuck in a zombie apocalypse, I would raid the nearest zoo and find some badass tigers. I don't know.
That could work.
Maybe a giraffe.
All right, Krista, what did you think of 108 here?
I mean, I liked it as much as I possibly could. It kept me interested reading it, but I did feel a little bit like, oh, everyone's upset at each other. I don't know, it's just, really dystopian, and that's how those zombie stories tend to be.
Yeah, the theme I find interesting, it's the idea of, Ezekiel, I'm just going to assume he's fairly good, but it's the idea of that benevolent leader. And he's clearly the leader of this faction, but he's a good leader. So is that going to change? What is it going to take to change? And now he's being thrust into a situation where he has to basically destroy his enemies.
I think a concept that's interesting is now that Carl is missing half his face, he has a blind spot. I think that's interesting because so many characters in comics have eye patches or have like one eye or they have some sort of disfigurement, but you don't see Nick Fury blindsided on the side of his eye patch. Nick Fury operates like a normal two-eyed person would, but Carl, on the other hand,
he almost gets killed.
Yeah, can't see a zombie coming because half his face is already blown off.
Right.
That's a nice element of realism.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
You're listening to Secret City Geek Lab. I'm Alan on KTST-FM. Up next, Batman number 18. In the wake of unspeakable tragedy, Batman is in danger of losing his humanity. And in a backup story, fan favorite character Harper Row returns. But will she be able to pull Batman back from the brink? Writer here is Scott Snyder, and the artist is Andy Kubert. Okay, Batman number 18. This is the aftermath of the death of, what's his name?
Damian Wayne.
Like I read that one. But we're looking here at Harper, who's a girl. You need to introduce this story a little bit.
Well, right now we're dealing with the aftermath of Damian Wayne, which is Bruce Wayne's son. He was the fourth Robin. So Robin has just died again.
And Batman or Bruce Wayne's really not taking it that well.
Well, I wouldn't either if it was my son that I paraded around the streets to fight the supervillains.
Right. They're basically showing Batman as going nonstop revenge on everybody.
The deep end revenge.
Exactly. He's going to. If you're bad, you're on the list. It doesn't matter if you're killing someone or stealing something. You're going down.
Yeah, and this is all part of Requiem, which is spanning a lot of the Bat titles. And it just has to do with the aftermath of Damian Wayne. I think it's a little bit of a rehash, a retread of A Lonely Place of Dying, which was when Timothy Drake, before he becomes Robin, Jason Todd was the last Robin to die, and Batman goes on the same sort of thing, a revenge spree where he's just beating up villains, and he's getting super violent.
Damian was his actual son, or
Damian was his actual son, yeah.
So there's a little more investment in, or a little more
emotional impact.
Yeah, a connection to the death as opposed to the other ones.
Yeah, but Jason Todd was an adopted son of Bruce Wayne, and when he died, Bruce Wayne went off the deep end, and Tim Drake saw that, being just a normal street. He wasn't a street kid, but just being a normal kid, he saw that Batman was going crazy, and Tim Drake stepped up to become Robin. That was in A Lonely Place of Dying. And in this, it just seems like the same thing. We have Harper, who's also she's a street kid. She's noticing that Batman's getting uber violent, and
she wants to basically do an intervention.
Yeah, and it seems to me that it's gearing towards Harper becoming the new Robin.
That would be the obvious, so maybe they're not going to go the obvious route.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talk about themes here, and it's just the idea of, not only is Batman going on a tear, but it's clear that because he's not sleeping, because he's not taking care of himself, he's ultimately going to make a mistake, and that's where that's where this issue kind of ends up. That he goes to some bad guy who has some dogs, and he doesn't know the dogs are there, and the dogs, it looks like they're hopped up on steroids or something.
I think they're hopped up on Venom, which is Bane's steroid of choice. But, and then Harper comes in to help out Batman, and Batman punches her in the face.
And that was
rude.
All right, so Krista, what did you think?
I like a good revenge plot. I don't know. I think it's great just to see a character just sort of break, just sort of snap and make horrible judgment calls.
Yeah.
I love to see a main character choose the wrong.
Yeah,
sometimes.
That's what I really like about comic books. It's not necessarily the action, but it's when a character is real. Mm-hmm. They're doing something that we can relate to, and in this case, just ultimate revenge or extreme revenge.
Well, normal people in the world become alcoholics or they cut themselves. Batman here beats up bad guys as a sort of self-destructive tendency. So, whereas most people turn to alcohol, at least he's cleaning up the streets.
Mm-hmm. If you're going to beat somebody, this is probably the people you should choose.
Yeah. So Batman's Dexter, basically.
Beautiful.
So here's my only problem with this issue, and it's the part in which Harper goes to Bruce Wayne, and she's basically... I don't know, it kind of took me out because Bruce Wayne was basically normal. I would think that when she's interacting with Bruce Wayne that he would still show some of the same emotion that he would if he were Batman. He just seemed he seemed like a completely different character. That Bruce Wayne she was talking to was not the Batman she was talking to.
Well, here's the thing though. Bruce Wayne has been Batman for, I'm assuming in the continuity, 10 to 15 years. He knows how to act as Bruce Wayne. He knows how to act as Batman. He's not going to let that slip. Now, she goes to Bruce Wayne not knowing that he is Batman, but he is head of Batman Incorporated, or he does fund it at least. And so there is that connection. Bruce Wayne is not Batman to her, but Bruce Wayne is related to Batman. But I don't know. I would say that, yes, he acts like a different person, but at the same time, he seems very glum and moody. And
she doesn't pick up on it. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't read it that way. I also find it interesting that in the Marvel Universe, if I think about it, I think only Spider-Man is the only one with a secret identity. In this case, it seems like Batman is the same way. He's the only one here who really has a secret identity.
Well, no. Superman has a secret identity.
Oh, that's true. So all the DC guys have
most of the DC
identities.
guys have secret identities. Most of the Marvel guys don't. Let's see. In Marvel, Captain America is Steve Rogers. Yeah. Hawkeye's Clint Barton. Everyone knows that.
Yeah. There's no stakes except for, like I said, Spider-Man, Steve Rogers, well, who cares?
Right. And, I don't know, nobody takes Hawkeye seriously, even though he kicks ass. I mean, you would think villains would like firebomb his apartment.
Yeah. Which reminds me, Hawkeye is definitely going to be a series we're gonna talk about in the future.
Well, yeah, that's an amazing series.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it's a really good series. Okay, well, that was Batman number 18 as we end on a Marvel topic. This is Secret City Geek Lab. I'm Alan Ng. Moving on, I just had a chance to go to Wondercon, and we're going to bring you several segments from that trip to Wondercon. First one I want to bring you, though, is a big announcement. I attended the Scott Snyder panel, and they are going to be doing a new series called Superman Unchained. Scott Snyder will be writing it, and DC publisher Jim Lee will be doing the art. But let's get right to that panel and learn more about Superman Unchained.
Well, as I used this riff before, if you were in the previous DC panel, if you weren't, this will be wonderful for you. But for a lot of people, doing the work that Scott's doing on Batman would be enough to keep them going, but it's not. So the next thing we're going to show up is Scott has a new series launching. Unchained, who you're working with, another up-and-coming young artist named Jim Lee.
Yeah, he's a little rough around the edges, though. We're whipping him into shape. No, I mean, blasphemy, Superman on the Batman panel, but they're friends. You're going to see Superman. You're going to see Superman in Batman. In fact, coming up very soon, and you're going to see Batman. This is spoiler. You're going to see Batman and Superman Unchained really early too. So, I'm really, really honored to work with Jim on this. Basically, it's sort of my one Superman story. If I ever got to tell a Superman story, it's the one that I would do, which is the way I sort of was thinking of Court of Owls. And I try and approach every story that way, where it's like, if you get one chance to write this amazing character that you've always wanted to write, what would that be? Write that story no matter what, even if everyone hates it. But with this one, I'm really, really proud of it. It explores what I think is great about Superman, which is partly his moral compass and the way that, he always says the right thing, and I think in a lot of ways that's what makes him Superman, and also makes him incredibly alone in the world. Lois is a really big part of it. Lois, his relationship with her and how he admires her because she's similar, I think, and is a kindred spirit. The villain in it is brand new. It's going to explore a really, really deep sort of historical element in a way that I think will threaten Superman like you've never seen, hopefully. And Lex is in it. Lex is a ton of fun to write, and Jim is drawing him. He just said, he's like, I'm drawing him to look like Matt Morrison. I'm like, he just said that in an interview, and I'm like terrified to get the pages. Because I love Grant. I mean, it seems like, hand-wringing like Lex is going to be really weird, but go for it, Jim. Anyway, and again, it's sort of the Superman story. If I got one chance to tell, I would. So I really hope you like it. It's going to challenge him emotionally and psychologically, and it's in continuity, and it has kind of big earth-shattering elements in it. So I don't know. I'm really nervous about it. It's very bright. Like you commute from Gotham to Metropolis, and it's like dark and rainy and awesome in that way, where you're like, oh, this city is so cool, it's so dark. And then you travel to Metropolis, and it's so bright and silver and shiny, and you have to be able to find that same darkness emotionally and psychologically. Like, no one gets their face cut off in the first issue or anything like that. But at the same time, I know, damn, I tried. My rejection from Dan DiDio, where I'm like, what if Superman gets his face cut off? No horses get killed yet. But the idea is that, at the end of the day, it really is. It's the Superman story I tell if I only got one chance, and Jim is bringing it like nobody's business. Like I was saying, I didn't know if it was a spoiler or not, but there's this fold out in the first issue where I told Jim, I'm like, oh, he fights. Oh wow, you have
like right there. Oh my god. Yeah, this is. Yeah, I just wanted to comment not to cut you off, but as you said, it might be blasphemous to talk about Superman on a Batman panel. What you consider blasphemy, I consider canny cross-promotion, but that's fine. And I'm not a writer. And speaking of promotion, as if anyone needed another additional inducement to buy issue 1 of Superman Unchained with the talent that's already on it, then you've got this thing.
Yeah, okay, so I wrote a splash. I'm gonna talk off the cuff again, because why not, right? So just be like, I wrote Jim a splash where Superman is fighting this massive thing that is threatening a giant element in the world, where if it if it sort of lands and crashes in some way, it's going to cause massive destruction. And I was like, so I really want to show Superman out of his element, out of his depth. Like, this thing is huge. So Jim's like, great. And he's great to talk to on the phone. He's always really funny on the phone, too. And I always, I get really intimidated because I still have, my X-Men #1, all signed, all the covers and everything like that. I have to, take a deep breath and be like, it's Jim. He's not Jim Lee, he's just Jim. You know what I mean? Just be like, yo, Jim, what's up? And then I always totally fail. I'm like, yo, Jim, what's up? I love you. He's like, so this thing comes, first, this is the backside. At the first page, basically, he sends this thing that is like this with a I'm like, I think that's 4 pages, you know what I mean? And so I said, it's either 4 pages or it's just something with an awesome cross down the middle, because Jim just rolls that way and he's just going to draw a cross on it, because why not, right? So I was like, he's either just being stylistic or there's 4 pages there. And I remember I was like, Jim, what is this? And he's like, oh, it's pages 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I was like, what? And he was like, it's actually a 4-page poster that folds out of the book. And I was like, wow, that's kind of amazing. How's that going to happen? He's like, we'll figure that out later. I was like, you can forward that to Dan. Roll with it. And the awesome thing is that this is actually the back of the fold-out. The front of the fold-out has the opposite view of the same situation, where Superman is about this big, and he's fighting this thing that's enormous, and you actually have to kind of find him on the page. He's so tiny that you can't even see him. And it's this amazing technical drawing, almost like something out of Akira or something, where it's the thing he's fighting is done in this incredible detail. And then you turn the page and you're with him. And the reason I'm so proud of this, and because people could say, oh, it's a poster, you're trying to sell a book, is that the way that Jim came up with it and the way he told me, and I was like, Jim, what is this? This is awesome. And he's like, well, the idea you were saying was that Superman essentially, we're trying to show how small he is and how much of the weight of the world he bears on his shoulders. And yet at the same time, we're trying to show how we're all with him, and we all root for him, and we are Superman because he's one of us. And so this arose out of that concept. And in that way, I feel like it's totally organic to the story, and I'm really proud of it being a part of the book.
This has been episode 5 of Secret City Geek Lab, and it was brought to you by Secret City Geek Lab and Secret City Comic Society, Fullerton's best all-ages improv comedy. Come back next week for more news and updates in the world of geekdom and nerdity. Big thank you to Dimithri, Perera, Davey Linam, and Krista Messer for their comic book roundtable and movie review. So this is Alan Ng, coming to you from KTST-FM, and I'm hoping you have a really great week, and we'll talk to you in just another 7 days.